Hey everyone, Brian here for another episode of the podcast. We're at a bit of a crossroads, and so I thought I would provide you an update of what's been going on. And there's some changes coming, so just realize that uh, not that what we haven't learned on the Driveway Marketing Podcast hasn't been fantastic, but it's evolved, and I wanted to share with you. Uh, there's probably more than 10 things I learned because I had amazing guests, had amazing conversations with amazing people, and hopefully y'all got something out of that. But I want to share with you 10 things as I reflect back of things I learned. And since everyone loved the Brian's 5 Laws of Selling, I'm going to share with you some 10 lessons that I took away and really why the show existed. And that has made a significant change of what's going to happen with the podcast. Now, is Brian going to change? No. Is what we do going to change? Kinda. You'll learn about that more at the end of the episode, but you'll realize that everything is done for a reason. And so the goal is always to help smart operators become more successful by getting more hands off in the business and letting the biz run itself and actually create more opportunities. But we are going to kind of revisit them. So each law will cover about a minute or so. I hope we'll see how I do, and we'll just go from there. So buckle up and get ready to go. So we're gonna create these laws so that you can. We're gonna refer back to them. So, and when we refer back to them, it means simply that these are fundamentally things that should be happening in your life, in your business, and that it will, once you understand those laws and once you understand how they work, you are going to have a marketing and sales machine that's going to have the business you want, not the business you have. So law number one is consistency beats creativity every single time. As you've heard me say lots of times, boring things get me excited. Remember, I had my document management business. We scanned pieces of paper and put it into a Oracle database in the cloud. And what ended up happening was after 4 years, we had 2 or 300 million records under management and in, a couple of servers in a kind of crazy place. So, but in the marketing world, consistency beats creativity every single time. So if you think of those boring people who make calls every quarter to their prospects, and that they are providing value and not just saying, what can I do to earn your business today? You are going to be in a much better position than the consistency of posting and putting out content that lives forever and is evergreen and matters over and over and over will help you do that. So consistency beats creativity every time. Obviously, there's viral things that happen that help, but those that play the long game are the ones that are going to win. So that's law number one. Our second law has to do with really how businesses treat their opportunity cycle. And a lot of them don't have a lead problem. They have a follow-up problem. And that follow-up problem is simply put as they think that everyone that's looking for information is looking to buy today. And remember the matrix we talked about a long time ago is 5% of your buyers are going to be buying right now. Whatever right now is depends on your business. Could be 2 hours, could be 2 weeks, could be 2 months, could be 2 years, depending on the prices of it. The next 15% are buyers that are going to be buyers, but there are things that they need to do in their sales cycle internally that they may or may not need you. So that 20% are the ones most likely to buy from you in a period of time. The next, basically from 20% to say 50% may or may not buy, depending on if they stay in that role, they stay in that change, they just, other things are happening. And about 50% of the people that follow up that you talk to are probably never going to buy, and for reasons that you have no control over. So, so when you understand and can automate and figure out how to do follow up that's meaningful, that is moving in a process, is formulaic, you're going to have a much better opportunity to working with those. You're going to move people from the bottom 50% into the 20%. You're going to move that bottom 20% into the 15 and 5%, and you're going to move them up. That's why they're called funnels. So remember, just follow up, right? There's like Dan Kennedy says, there's only 2 ways to get off his prospect list. One is to buy and the other is to die. So go with that. The third law that I'd like to talk about is that selling isn't necessarily manipulation. I really feel like the car business, sorry for you car listener people, I feel like they're trying to manipulate you and trick you all the time. And so when it feels like manipulation, you may get transactions if you're in a transactional business, but you will not get transformation. Because when you think about sales being a diagnosis, and here's, hey, again, I have a lead problem. Well, let's fix follow-up first before you get a lead problem, because if you add more leads to the system and you don't change the follow-ups, you're going to do that. So that's really becomes a diagnosis. And that's really important, because when sales is a diagnosis and a story and everything else, all of a sudden it doesn't feel so bad, right? So I'm working on some consulting right now, and we've framed out kind of what past clients look like. Well, why did we do that? Because when they call in or they reach in, or we do a lead candidate, or they do whatever to get onto the sales pipeline, and the first conversation or second conversation was like, hey, John, I'm glad you called, because we've been working with companies just like yours for quite a while, and we'd love to be able to help you. And we kind of know most of the questions you're going to have. And we want to make this experience of going from point A to B, point B, as simple and as fun as possible. In this case, that's applicable. And I'm here to help you when you are ready to go. So don't feel like, but I will follow up with you. I will do other stuff, but it doesn't feel like, hey, what do I need to do to get you to pull this in this quarter? Now, I understand in big corporate enterprise, there are things that happen that you kind of manipulate, and you do deals and into quarters, into months to make numbers. And by the way, in the enterprise, meaning the big companies, the buyers know that too. So they also have goals on quarters, because that's the way the system is played out. So again, sales is a diagnosis, not just a manipulation. So let's pop into law number 4. If you think referrals are an accident that you leave up to your customers, you're missing out. Referrals need to be a system. And when I say a system, you need to know who your top 20% of referrals come from, and how do you make that an accident? Both Pam and I talk about this ad nauseum, that once you build a referral system, you don't have to worry about leads ever again. Referrals in most high ticket items, meaning anything over thousands of dollars or relatively complex decisions, a referral is going to close faster than building from the beginning. Why? Because you have been referred by a trusted source. I've told you countless stories on the podcast how I was a member of we called it the mafia, because I was walked into CIO's offices. That has never changed. I've been selling professionally for at least 30 years or more. I've sold hundreds of millions of dollars myself. My clients have sold, I don't even know, trillions of dollars, probably. Just kidding. But they all came from referrals. I would say 90% of the business I have partaken in the last 27 years or 30 years have been referral based. Now, I'm not saying that doing outreach, other stuff doesn't help. It certainly does help. And it certainly helps create that ecosystem. In fact, I have an entire business built around that, but that's built on the fact that we have a follow-up system, not just a lead gen system. So that's the case. All right. So remember, referrals should be a system. If they're not, get your butt in gear and get that going. Law number 5, people buy the outcome. Oh my goodness. I know you've heard this 100 times, but if you think of like an industrial company, so if you think about let's just say that a piece of equipment is not working properly, and they're frustrated, they're annoyed, they're getting in trouble. They don't want to buy a piece of equipment. They want to increase uptime. They want to get their product out the door faster. They want to be able to bill quicker. And the investment then just becomes the things that have to happen to make that go. That's why people often mistake price for value, and they mistake business first for features and functions. So if you think about talking, this is the difference between talking to an executive suite owner versus talking to a buyer, or even a less sophisticated manager. Nothing against them, but people further up the decision chain are trying to improve the bottom line. They're trying to get to market faster. And some other people are trying to, look at a budget, which matters, but they're trying to do things in a certain way. So remember, people buy the outcome, right? People don't want to eat less calories every day and exercise. What they want to do is they want to lose 25 pounds by the time the wedding happens. That's a classic example for that. So there you go. So remember, people buy the outcome. All right, let's move on to law number 6 that I learned is that the customer experience is marketing. So if you think about what we call proof marketing or proof or case studies or testimonials, I often just think of my friend Vance. How do you use the experience of what's happening to make your next sale or your referral sale that much simpler? I probably said this a couple times. I'll say it again. Knocking on the door to Joe Public. Hi, I'm Bryan with the carpet company. Before I come in, I just wanted to, I want to wipe off my feet. I want to put on my booties. And before we get going, Mary, I just wanted to prepare you this gift. Here's some, regardless of what happens today, here is some pet cleaner, some deodorizer, and some spot cleaner that you can use. Now, why don't you go ahead and show me what it is you'd like me to look at? We've reframed the conversation. We've made it an experience. And now the customer doesn't feel like they're being marketed to and sold to. We've talked about shock and awe boxes. When you send shock and awe boxes prior to any type of conversation that's happening, you're not starting out cold. The first thing they're going to say is, hey, I wanted to thank you for that kind gift. Food is often good, although it doesn't stick very well, but it is good. And God, please don't send them a mug with your logo on it. Send them one with their logo on it. All right. So that is, the customer experience. And obviously, if you don't follow Vance Morris at vancemorris.com to understand how customer experience is part of your marketing experience and can change everything. This next one is our law number 7, and how culture is a competitive advantage. And I'm going to have a future podcast on with a couple of my colleagues, customers and friends that are going to talk about how they're building customers a competitive advantage. But I'm going to tell you about our own culture at MVP. We have been working on the Working Genius for, I don't even know, 2.5 years now. And everyone on the team and everyone who's a member talks about how they use their Working Genius. Now, sometimes it's not natural. We understand that. But what has happened really dramatically, this is summer of 2026, over the last 6 months, is that as we prepared for a shift in the business, I've had to bring in more expertise that I wasn't as comfortable with. And I said, listen, you are the experts and I'm just the idea guy, because I'm an ID. I'm an inventor discerner. That means where we're going, I know how to invent it. And a discernment means I know there's a market for it. And I'm finding that enabling people to really dig deep on and let them be responsible for their little piece of the business as it grows has been an unbelievable change. How does that help? That means my director of operations and my leadership team is really leaning into culture. So when they struggle with their direct reports, they talk about culture, right? We talk about family first is not just a thing to say. It means that there's 2 parts of family first. If you need to go to your kid's kindergarten graduation, you should absolutely do that. But you also have an obligation to make sure that your family gets a paycheck. So you better make up the time and effort. And every single person on my team has the ability to take time off as they need it and make up the time as they need it. No questions asked, because to me, I'm going to do the same thing. If I have a choice between doing work in the office or doing trainings and going on the boat with Ian and Sean and Pam, guess what I'm taking? 100% of the time. I also work like a nut. So it's not as much as, not as often as I would like, but we're getting there. So that moves us into law number 8. And this one really leans into what's happening in the future. What we call, you'll hear me talking about an invisible authority, is an owner-dependent business isn't scalable. And there's a bunch of podcast episodes that I'll put in the notes that talk about that. We always talk about, these business coaches coming in and talking about systems and this and that and the other thing. I can tell you that at this point in time, 80% of what happens in my day that is related to our customer success has nothing to do with me doing it. Now, I wish it was 90% or 100%, but that's not the case. And this has to do with production. I'm still involved in sales, but once it gets off my plate, my team takes care of it. I babysit it to make sure it's right. I do some QA checks, but the reality of it is that it is their job to make sure the product gets delivered on a consistent basis. And when that happens, I become an authority on the topic because I can say, we produced X amount of this. Like I don't even know how many phone calls we make a day. I can tell you how many people our call center team percentage-wise speaks to a day, but I can't tell you the numbers. It changes all the time. But 5 months ago, we were only speaking to 12 to 13% of people we dialed. In the last 60 days, that number is closer to 23%, which is average. For those of you that have Googled my business and you have a phone number listed, answer your phone. Still about 20% of you don't answer your phone at all, which I get, but at least allow someone to make a voicemail. So there you go. So owner-dependent businesses are not scalable. Just remember that, okay? The next law number 9, really interesting. Marketing decisions need financial context. So when you think about every marketing decision you make, and I don't care, marketing means anything. It means going to an event. It means having a trade show booth. It means being a part of an organization, a trade organization. It means going to masterminds. It means going to conferences. It means running ads. It means doing social posting, whatever. They have to have financial context. So you need to understand that if your only marketing strategy is referrals and you only need 10 referrals, you can spend a lot of time, effort, and money and resources to do that. So I get, again, 90% of my business comes from referrals. I'm in a mastermind. I run a mastermind. I go to conferences. Can you guess how much customers come from those? A lot. Can I tell you that is it cheap? No, it's not cheap. It's expensive in a couple ways. One, there's an investment to join the groups. I run one. I'm a part of one. There's an investment involved. So there's dollars and cents leaving the bank account. There's a time commitment, right? So the time is I'm leaving the office. So if it's a 2-day event, I'm getting there a day before. I'm either coming back very late the next day or coming home that day. So it could be a 3 or 4 day time investment. And then there's the emotional investment of being a part of the group and being present. Don't just go to an event to go there. Be present and have a goal. One of my friends, Bryan, talks about when he was in the social media business that he had a goal of meeting 3 people. And then once he met 3, he was done, which I laughed at, but it's okay. But that was his goal because that was the financial context. He knew if he spoke to 3 people, two of them would become clients. And that basically justified his return on investment. So there you go. Law number 9. The last one, and quite honestly, a little bit controversial, but given what's happening today in the summer 2026 is not even something you could ignore. You can't walk down the street if you're in business and not know it, is that AI should amplify your voice, not replace it. So if you are using AI to create a video of you doing something, I'm going to share with you, stop, don't do it. I applaud you for trying something, but that has dramatically changed, especially if you're in the opportunity space. If you are selling something that is opportunity driven, the opportunity is they need to get to know you before anything else. If you look at the big players, that they're going to use AI for certain stuff, right? But they're for creation, but they're not going to use it to define their voice, right? And so if you want to see how you play out with that, I strongly suggest you go out and go to my website, the mvpauthorityhub.com, and get a leak report. What does a leak report do? It helps you identify a couple things. It helps you identify some technical items, and it's going to give you some ideas of things you can do to fix your own market voice so that you show up in AI. Oh my goodness, what do you mean? I got to show up in AI? Don't they just know my stuff? No, the most authentic voices are the ones that show up often. And so if you do run a podcast or have marketing materials, case studies, sales presentations, webinars, anything, go ahead and start thinking about how you can do that. And in the next episode, we're going to dig deep on some ways you can do yourself. And if you want help, I'll give you some places to get help. But that would be the law number 10. So remember, Consistency beats creativity. Most businesses have a follow-up problem, not a lead problem. Sales is a diagnosis, not a manipulation. Referrals are your system, not an accident. People buying outcomes, big one. Hear a lot about that, lots of places. Customer experiences marketing. I'll provide a link to Vance's website in the show notes. Culture is a competitive advantage. You can listen to any of my episodes on The Working Genius or listen to Pat Lencioni and theworkinggenius.com. I am not a coach from him. I'm just a huge fan. And owner-dependent businesses are not scalable. Even if you read my book, Stuck on First, you talk about how I built the business and then how I was not an operator, but still in sales and marketing, but they were delivering what I knew. Marketing decisions need to have some type of financial context. Big deal. It needs to have an ROI. Don't redo your website for $10,000 unless you know it's going to create $30,000 worth of opportunity in the next X days. Not saying you shouldn't redo your website. I'm just saying that you need to have a goal in mind. And the last one that you're going to hear a ton about going forward is AI should amplify your voice, right? So get it. So there you go. That's what I learned. Why did I do this? Why did I go through the trouble of changing it? Well, first and foremost, I think I've mentioned this a bunch of times. I love the home services business. We own a home services business. But I've also noticed that the people that I can help the most are the ones least likely to do anything about it. I have friends that run businesses that have home services. We meet people all the time, the 1 or 2 person employees. And there's a couple things that happen. One, they don't have the resources. 2, they are stuck in what they're stuck on. And that's a different place than where I'm able to help. And so what I have noticed over the last really 3 years or 5 years from a delivery point of view, and what I've noticed is that bigger companies are willing to try things. And then once they try the right things, they see the results and we're able to help them. So that's why I've decided to call this the Authority Hub podcast. So we are going to be talking about how do you become an authority, and then all the tips and tricks on how to amplify that authority and what you should be doing to start it. Neil Patel, big voice in the marketing business. One of the things that if I had to do anything today, he said I would open up a YouTube and start talking about whatever my expertise was. And then we're going to take that and drive that. We've turned that into basically a done for you authority offer, how to format it for AEO so that people can find it. It's really designed for people doing about $1 million a year with 5 or 6 employees to maybe $50 million a year with 40 to 100 employees. How you can be invisible, not do the work, or if you have a podcast, it's going to be amazing. So go ahead and take advantage of that resource. Go to the mvpauthorityhub.com. So put in your website. We'll give you a leak report. It takes us a day or 2 to do it, but you will get a sample immediately that shows these are actual examples. These are not made up ones. The names are changed to protect the innocent or guilty in some cases, but you will find that it's probably going to be very similar to your site, depending on your business. So depending on the type of business you have, you do that. So I wanted to thank you for spending the previous 25 minutes or so with me. And I am looking forward to having a bunch of great episodes. The next 5 or 6 episodes are going to be with people that I have an intimate relationship who are authorities in their space. They've written books. They have podcasts. They are generally considered thought leaders in their space. They're influential in whatever market they have, and they're going to mean someone you didn't think so. So anyway, thank you again for listening, and welcome to the Authority Hub podcast.